Okay, so hello everybody and thank you for joining us today. Today we're joined by Johan Dreyer from Mimecast and Helen Murphy here from Bytes as we go through our Mimecast email management for Office 365 webinar. So just before we start, a couple of housekeeping details. During the webinar you are all muted, but you can submit questions via the question box which is on the right hand side of your screen. So as we go along, if any of the content you do have any questions surrounding that, please do pop a question in that box, and then at the end there'll be a Q&A session and we'll go through all of those questions and answer all of those for you. The webinar will be recorded, so we'll make that available to you afterwards. We'll send you an email with a link to that so that you can obviously listen back to that and pass it on to anybody else who you may think it may be relevant to. At the end of the webinar there will also be a critique form which if you could fill that in, it would be much appreciated. It also gives you the opportunity there that if you would like a callback from us surrounding anything specific that's been covered within the webinar, you can let us know there and we'll get one of the Bytes people to give you a call back and just follow up on that. So I'm now just going to hand over to Helen from Bytes just to give you a bit of an overview about the Bytes and Mimecast partnership.
Thank you, Sarah, and thanks everyone for joining. Good morning. So my name's Helen Murphy. I'm the Vendor Relations Manager at Bytes for Storage and Security Solutions, and I just wanted to go through a quick introduction to Bytes and Mimecast. So we've benefited from a great partnership with Mimecast for a number of years now, and we have the highest level of partner status afforded to Mimecast partners, and this is based on our revenue, our customer base, and our sales and technical expertise. We have about 20,000 users, so a significant customer base which is across multiple verticals. We've got some great references in legal sector, football clubs, insurance, manufacturing, retail and food and beverage. So Bytes are fully technically certified with the Mimecast service, and we actually use Mimecast in-house ourselves and we love the service, so we have a lot of happy users. So that's all from me. I'll now pass over to Johan to go through his presentation.
Thanks for that, Helen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Johan Dreyer. I'm the Lead Enterprise Solutions Architect at Mimecast, and we'll be taking you through the today's webinar. What I'm going to focus on today's webinar is really a quick look at what is Office 365, so kind of looking at what are the myths, or trying to look at what is Office 365 really, what does it mean to businesses, what are some of the key things that you as a customer should potentially be aware of and be looking at if you're considering or planning or actually even using Office 365, and then how what Mimecast delivers, and how Mimecast can help you with that. Okay, so with that, let's start off. So we're going to start off with an Office 365 overview, and essentially the first thing that I want to sort of make clear or bring up is that Office 365, unlike what most people might think, is not actually a product or a technology. It is really a brand. It's Microsoft's brand that they've given to their suite of online collaboration services and platforms, and it's really that is made available to their customers and to the end users as an always on, always available, access from anywhere a collaboration and communications tool set. Within the Office 365 umbrella there are multiple products and platforms, but the core feature set is around hosted Exchange services or Exchange Online, hosted Link services or Link Online, hosted SharePoint services or SharePoint Online, and Office Professional Plus delivered as a service, or Office Professional Plus on demand. There are really two types of deployment mechanisms available for most organizations. Those do have some caveats and flavors within them, and within those two types of deployment mechanisms, customers can choose whether they want to go with a cloud-only deployment, which really plays to the majority of the market, where you have all of the services hosted in the Microsoft global data centers. You as a customer and your users would consume those services over the internet, and as an IT department or as the administrators and help desk, you would have access into those services either via a web-based console, via Exchange Management Shell, to be able to manage and maintain your all the elements pertaining to your environment. With Cloud Only, you can integrate with your on-premise Active Directory if you have one, so that you don't have to manage multiple sets of credentials and your user attributes and things like that in multiple places, but that is an optional step. We see the Cloud Only as really the majority of deployments mode, or the biggest deployment mode across the sort of small to medium and sort of lower end enterprise market segment, primarily because it is the simplest to deploy, it has the lowest cost to manage and maintain, and it also plays well into the model where there's less users, less volumes of data, and less mailboxes to kind of move and manage up into the cloud. The alternative deployment option is really a full hybrid coexistence, and that has quite a number of requirements from the customer end and infrastructure, where you'd need to have Exchange in the relevant architecture, in the relevant versions, so Exchange 2010, 2013. You have to have Active Directory for authentication. You have to have Active Directory Federation services. These should ideally be designed and built out in a redundant, highly available architecture, so that you don't at any, or the on-premise portion of your hybrid deployment doesn't at any point impact the service availability or the accessibility of the services in the Microsoft data center. So it is quite complex. It is quite, it does carry a higher cost to maintain, manage, and support, because you're managing 365 and Exchange on-premise. And then on top of that, but it does carry a number of additional benefits, which really come around that in the area of being able to choose how and where your mailboxes are hosted, what happens with them, the flexibility to move them to the on-premise to the cloud, backwards and forwards, and really is scaled at a long-term coexistence with a phased migration approach, or the ability to keep, or the desire or requirement to keep certain parts of your infrastructure and your estate on-premise and certain parts in the cloud. So really, when we look at Office 365, or when customers look at Office 365, what are they looking at? Now, it comes with a number of different plans, platforms, and ranges, or a number of different plans and platforms and services. You have the opportunity, or you have, as a customer, you have the option to purchase either Exchange, SharePoint, Link, or Office Pro Plus as a per user per month, or in the case of enterprise, per user per month, paid per annum basis. You can buy each service. You can mix and match service plans depending on the end user requirements, and then provision those. There's also bundle solution bundles available that really, or that offer you a combination of one or two or more of the actual services available within the platform. Office 365 is designed from the ground up to be a highly available platform, and with that, Microsoft commits to a 99.9% service availability. So it typically is more resilient, more available, and more than most existing enterprise or corporate messaging platforms. From an Exchange storage perspective, Microsoft have recently upped their mailbox sizes on the full plans for Exchange to 50 gigabytes, and then on the sort of kiosk, which are the webmail only and shared mailbox plans, those have been up to about 2 to 4 gigabytes, depending on the plan that you're on. The key benefits here is it is flexible. So as a customer, you get the opportunity to choose, based on your user base and based on your user type, the kind of functionality that you want to have, optimize the cost of your actual messaging solution or your collaboration platform delivery to your organization, and deliver that from a highly available, resilient architecture and platform. One of the key things that you do have to understand when considering this, though, is you are moving onto a shared service platform. And the nature of any shared service platform is that it is delivered as a multi-tenanted solution, which is designed to be available, resilient, and high performance. And that means that you're going to get a set of hard-coded features, a set of hard-coded allowances, and a set of hard-coded limitations that you would not necessarily, or you would not have the ability or power to influence or change in terms of the service delivery. So it's really, really important that you take the time to look into what exactly your Office 365 plan includes, doesn't include, and what that could potentially mean to your organization in the way that you have historically used the services that you're moving to the cloud, and in the way that you're going to be using those services moving forward in future. One of the greatest advantages for Office 365 is that it is an evergreen solution, right? So that means that once you move to Office 365, as an end user or as a customer, you no longer have to worry about moving to Exchange vNext, or moving to Link vNext, or moving to SharePoint vNext. Microsoft will take care of that. Microsoft will manage that, and they will only require you or they'll only ask you to do desktop component or end user component updates in a phased and rolled out, in a phased and planned manner to allow you to support the actual platform service upgrade. A very important part of the actual collateral that survives around Office 365 are the service descriptions. Microsoft have been very, very prescriptive and very, very thorough in documenting exactly what is available in each and every part of their service, what the feature set is, what the limitations are, what you can do, what you can't do as a customer. Anyone who's considering, I would strongly recommend anyone who is considering moving to Office 365 at any point in time, take the time to read through the service descriptions. I know that it's I will be the first to tell you that there's a very large number of pages. It's not really the most interesting bedtime reading, but it can be the difference between a successful or a failed Office 365 project. And with that sort of, the key thing obviously is looking at and understanding what some of those limitations are. These do change on a regular basis, so do keep checking back with the service descriptions to understand where you are and where things are. But a couple of key points that really I've seen in my history where people have got or faced some challenges around attachment or around migrations, around adoption of 365 and things like that, is paying particular attention to things like the message and attachment size limits. Typically, Microsoft offer a very generous 25 meg message size limit, as well as a 25 meg attachment size limit. Now, the message size limit is the attachment plus the other message components. So that means that if you're sending a message that contains a signature, all the HTML and rich text or HTML and plain text components, the headers, all that kind of stuff, the message payload is going to be much larger than 25 meg. So it's worth keeping that in mind. Most organizations that have in-house Exchange deployments typically would limit the external sending and receiving capacity of Exchange to either the default 10 meg, or they would up it to whatever they would want in their network or their environment, but would usually not apply policies and restrictions on internal message transactions. And that means that when you start trying to move mailboxes to Office 365 or migrate data from your on-prem environment to Office 365, there is potential and there is risk that internal emails will be over this message size limit and will cause that mailbox migration to fail and put you in a position as the person who's running or managing that project to actually have to sit there and go, what am I going to do with this data? How am I going to manage it? What am I going to do with it? There are also recipient limits, email or message transaction limits, so number of messages per minute, number of emails per day, that apply on the on a per mailbox and a per user basis. Those are not aggregate and are enforced. So if you have applications that are doing things like invoicing, you're running an invoicing run once a month, you could potentially breach those thresholds and end up in a limited functionality scenario for your account. So it is worth looking at these, understanding what the implications are for your environment, understanding the way that you use email, and being thorough about the actual planning of it. These limitations, in my experience, have never stopped an organization from moving to Office 365. They've only added some complexity to it, and that complexity is usually mitigated by actually taking a step back, understanding what's available, what's not, what the limitations are, planning for it, and then moving forward with the migration in a proper sort of planned approach. That's my short, sweet introduction to Office 365 and some of the gotchas that I've seen in my life migrating customers onto it. Now we're going to take a very quick look at Mimecast and what it is that Mimecast does for our customers, followed by a quick sort of overview of what it is Mimecast does for Office 365. So Mimecast at its core is really built as a unified platform that is catered or geared towards information management. We started our journey off based on 3 core pillars, which evolved around email, which was sort of in our experience, the biggest repository of unstructured data in customer environments. The 3 core services that we deliver around email today are email security, which is essentially a very, very powerful granular gateway service that incorporates your standardized SMTP hygiene services like anti-spam, antivirus, anti-phishing, all those kind of components, augments that with enhanced capabilities such as attachment management, content examination, data loss prevention, and stationery and disclaimer management, and then takes that and delivers that as a single unified service that can integrate with virtually any messaging platform out there today. We also then built up an archiving platform on the back end that bolts into that, and that archiving platform is designed to be a fully compliant and litigation-ready archiving platform. So we receive emails, we store them in perpetuity with no size limit or no storage limit on your account or on your mailboxes. So as long as you retain, and we provide it as a tamper-proof archive that users can still access, administrators can still access, and then offers you the ability to run mailbox management processes on top of that. Now, because we've got the archive storage that is built up in real time, and we'll go through how we do this in the next slide, and we have the security piece or the gateway piece that's able to deliver the SMTP transactability on the outside, we are uniquely positioned to provide an email transactability and email service availability and continuity service to our customers. That extends itself to Outlook, mobile devices, and also to a web-based portal. And that continuity service is underwritten by a 100% service availability SLA that is actually financially backed as well. In terms of how we would work and how we would look, the story is very much the same regardless of what your messaging platform and what your messaging architecture is. There are some slight variations in terms of the supported feature set, the capabilities in terms of where you are, whether you're on-premise, whether you're hybrid, whether you're migrating to Office 365, or whether you're fully on Office 365. And excuse me. And I would encourage you to get in touch with your account managers on the Bytes team to schedule follow-up sessions with us if you really want to go into more detail as to how it is that we can integrate, what your plans are in terms of moving to something like Office 365, and where it is that we can help you with that. So the Mimecast service, or the Mimecast platform, is a cloud service. The core layer of how we would work is essentially customers point their MX records to us. We therefore become the first point of entry for all email. All email comes into Mimecast, goes through a very sophisticated, multi-layered security platform. Once it's gone through that, it's been checked for any reputation, malware, viruses, all those kind of, all the sort of nasties and stuff that you normally find in email and don't want to come into your organization. The next step would be to apply all of your standard policies that you would want on the inbound routing, whether that's encryption, whether that's content examination, whether that's address rewrite during a migration or during a merger or an acquisition. Very, very powerful, very granular content, policy engine there. We would then try to deliver that to either your on-premise Exchange environment or to Office 365 if you're in a migration scenario, or once you completely migrated over, we'd deliver that to Office 365 for you. Once Office 365 says, yes, I accept that message, or no, I don't accept that message, a copy of that message will be written simultaneously to 3 dedicated information stores for you as a customer. Right? So every single message on the inbound route will be written immediately to 3 information stores. On the outbound route, Office 365 or Exchange would push email to Mimecast. We would then apply a unified set of policies against it, whether those are content examination, attachment management, data loss prevention, stationery management, disclaimer management, antivirus, anti-spam, etc. Would apply all of those, attempt delivery to the remote MTA, and once the remote MTA accepts or rejects that message, again, we would write a copy of that message in triplicate to be stored in your archive for your account. For internal emails, what we can do, or what we would do, is we'd ask you to enable journaling on your Exchange and Office 365 environments. Scope that down or restrict that down to only journal for internal emails. And what that would mean is that any email that's transacted internally from one user to another will be fired off by the 365 platform or by Exchange to Mimecast as soon as it is ready to be delivered to the recipient mailbox. The way that we do this archiving puts us in a very unique position in terms of compliance and litigation-ready archives, in the sense that the message is only archived after every single policy and every single manipulation of that message has been applied. The message that's archived includes the actual header transactions and the accept, reject, as well as the connection parameters for that delivery. And then it also includes all the components of the message, which are individually and uniquely crypto-hashed, so that you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, this is the message that was delivered, these are the policies that were applied, this is the time it took to deliver, this is the time that the MTA accepted or rejected the message, and this is the reason given. Any existing email that you have today on your Exchange environment prior to migrating to Office 365, you can export to PST or to EML files. Provide that to Mimecast, and we can ingest that for you into the archive. So that allows you to be able to reduce the amount of mailbox storage and data that you have to migrate onto the next version of the platform, onto the next or onto Office 365. From an accessibility perspective, as I said, we give end user access into the archive using virtually any device they're on, as long as they're internet connected. That could be from Outlook, using our Mimecast Services for Outlook plugin that enables archive access, security features such as the on hold and or such as the hold queue or quarantine queue management for the users, the managed senders, so block list, whitelist management, as well as the ability to manage how, or to decide how email is delivered, whether that's encrypted or not. And then on top of that, also provides the email continuity service, so the ability to actually send and receive email even if Exchange or Office 365 is not available at that point in time for whatever reason it is. We also provide applications for all major smartphones and tablets that allow the users access into their archive, the ability to send and receive emails in a continuity event or from the application itself, and also the ability to manage their on-hold queues. The third sort of the final sort of point of entry would really be a web-based end-user portal where they can log in, have a webmail style experience to be able to search across their archive, read emails, forward emails, and reply to them. In keeping with the theme of cloud services, for those organizations who have users that are using consumer tools such as Box and Dropbox for information sharing, those users can actually link their Mimecast archive or their Box and Dropbox accounts to the Mimecast archive, and you can enforce a policy to say that anything corporate that gets shared using these consumer tools should be placed in these particular locations, which allows us to replicate or archive a copy of that content into Mimecast for compliance reasons. So it's to provide visibility of what's being shared, when's it being shared, and give you the ability to audit, track, and trace. Administration is delivered through a single unified web console that is accessible from anywhere. You can also restrict access to this to specific networks if you're very security conscious. And that admin interface allows you to set up roles-based access control so that you can have different functionality exposed to the different types of users within the organization, whether that's compliance, whether that's HR, whether that's help desk, or whether that's your Exchange administrators. They can all have different levels of access to different parts of the administration console pertinent to the type of function and role that they are going to be executing. Another an interesting tool that we've recently launched is called Large File Send for Outlook. Now, this is only accessible at the moment through the Outlook plugin, so you'd need to deploy that. But essentially, what it does is it allows users to securely transact files of up to 2 gigabytes with internal and external parties, bypassing the actual messaging infrastructure, whether that's Exchange or Office 365. What would happen is that the user would attach an email as per their normal process to Outlook. The Mimecast services for Outlook would intercept that that attachment or that action if the message triggered a policy, and then change that to a large file send invitation. Once the user sends the email, once the user clicks send, they'll be prompted, depending on the policy you set up, to either or for the duration that attachment should remain available for, and secondly, whether they want to be notified about the actual access or consumption of the content. When they click send, we will upload that email securely to Mimecast, or that attachment securely to Mimecast in the background. Apply all of your antivirus, anti-spam, data loss prevention, content examination, attachment management policies against that message, and then once it's successfully passed through all of those, we will share a unique access key and download link with the recipient, whether that's internal or external. The download link will take the recipient to a secure web portal where they enter the download access key, and once they download the actual files or content that's been shared, we will then deliver the tracking receipt or the tracking notification to the end user environment. This is particularly handy for users who are on or who do have to send out large sets of documents, tender processes, marketing collateral, engineering and architecture design, things like that. In the background, in the platform, all of your policies remain. The content is archived. All the access notifications, all that kind of stuff is tracked, so you can deliver the compliance. You can ensure that you're securely able to deliver the message, and that you can expire the content so that it doesn't remain exposed for a lengthy period of time. So moving on to how Mimecast would work with Office 365 and what it really is that we do for Office 365. So essentially, the Mimecast service and the Mimecast story doesn't really change whether you're on Exchange, whether you're on Lotus Domino, or whether you're on Office 365. What is really important to understand is what it is that we add and how it is we help with your Office 365 service account and plan. Now, if we go back if we rewind a couple of minutes, you'll remember I was saying that the ideal scenario would be that as a customer, you look at you profile your different types of users in terms of how they use the services. You take a look at what the service offerings are from Microsoft and Office 365, and then you align the usage type with a particular service plan. That's going to allow you as a customer to optimize the actual billing and the cost of your collaboration service delivery. But but the other side of it is that it's going to mean that you're going to have a certain set of features, for example, data loss prevention, available to a small set of users, and then you might have another set of features, such as archiving, available to a slightly larger set of users, and then you might have a much bigger set or majority of the organization that don't have these capabilities or facilities built in. Using a service like Mimecast ensures that every single user across your organization has a uniform security feature set applied to them, has a uniform set of policies applied to every single email or all the content that is entering and leaving your organization, right? It allows you to deliver archiving across every single platform or every single user in the organization, regardless of whether their Office 365 plan supports that archiving service or not. We offer, as I said, an immutable litigation-ready archive, which means that users cannot delete data from the archive, administrators cannot delete data from the archive. The only people that can are those that have been assigned the appropriate privilege, and by going through a multi-step process that collects the data, requests it to be deleted, reviews the data, and approves the deletion to actually occur. So that means that every single message that comes in and out of your organization is actually stored in real time as it's transacted, and you're living in a world where your company never actually has to lose another email again in their lives, right? That plays quite powerfully into the standard Office 365 story, because whether you realize it or not, Microsoft do not back up Exchange Online. It is designed to be a resilient, always-on service that operates within the Exchange retention policies. That means that you have a finite window of deleted item retention. You have a finite window of purged item retention. Once you cross that deleted plus purged item retention window, anything that was in there becomes unrecoverable. You could go the route of enabling litigation hold on the account if you have that functionality enabled, which then puts everything, or which then holds everything in a search and discovery mode. But that creates another set of, and that will work, but that creates another set of challenges around how are you meeting your PII purge policies? How are you meeting your PCI compliance policies, where you need to remove data, and that needs to be selectively done? Are you applying litigation hold based on the per mailbox or based on the entire organization? Is every single user in your organization on a plan that supports litigation hold, and is that a cost-effective approach to doing it? These are all key areas and key things to look at and to consider when moving across. With that, I'm sort of going to open the floor to questions. As I said, this has been designed to be a very high-level introduction to what it is that Office 365 can do for organizations, what it is Mimecast can do for organizations, and how this might look like as a single unified solution. We are available to run, or we are available to do slightly more in-depth and slightly more focused sessions with each and every one of you if you wish to have one. As I said before, please do take the time to reach out to your account teams, or to the teams that have booked you on this WebEx today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Johan. So we've got a few questions in the box so far. Please feel free to submit a question if you have one. So we have one from Tahir. Tahir wants to know, is there a recipient's limit when emails are sent internally?
So yes, the actual recipient limits the actual recipient limits are applied on emails whether they're sent internally or externally, as are the actual transmission limits or message rate limits across the 365 platform. So it is a global policy.
Okay, thank you. And David's asked, what is the back-end infrastructure? Do you provide a higher 99s than Microsoft?
So yes, we do provide a higher availability than Microsoft. Our SLA is a financially backed 100% service availability SLA. The backend infrastructure is based on commodity compute cluster grid infrastructure. It is the entire platform is designed, built, owned by Mimecast. So we're not using sort of your standard off-the-shelf software technologies and things like that to deliver this. We build it, we code it, we design it, and then we deliver that out of regional data centers that guarantee data jurisdiction. So EU customers, as an example, are typically serviced out of the UK data centers, and that means that your data will always reside within the UK, within the borders of the United Kingdom.
Okay, great. And one from Alan, is the large file send feature a chargeable add-on?
Yes, large file send is a chargeable add-on, but there is a caveat to that. So it's delivered under three different product levels. The first one is a free edition that is bundled with every single Mimecast customer account, whether that's a security account or a continuity account or an archiving account, and that allows transmission of up to 30 meg of emails without policy encryption or without policy-based enforcement and without the delivery notifications. The second option is a site license, which is purchased across the entire user base. Allows the ability to set policy-based transmission of files, so replace the attach, or once an email tries to be attached over a certain size limit, large file send it, and allows up to 300 meg of attachments to be transmitted per user or per email. And then the final one is the Pro license, which is purchased on a per user basis with a minimum purchase of 10 licenses. That allows up to 2 gig with a full feature set of policy, delivery notification, etc.
Okay, thank you. And one from Lee, is the anti-spam, antivirus and malware Mimecast or Office 365 or both?
So the approach we would recommend, or the approach that we would take with this, is to actually move the antivirus and anti-spam and anti-malware to Mimecast from Office 365. So within your Office 365 administration console, you can go in and disable the anti-spam, antivirus, anti-malware features and functionality within that if you're using a third-party solution to run that scanning for you. The reason we would have recommended doing this approach is because we operate at the actual gateway level, or at the first point of entry and exit. We would apply all the scanning and only send clean data to Microsoft. And if you don't turn those off, there is the possibility that Microsoft may hold, quarantine, or reject messages based on their own signatures and their own sort of approach to doing the antivirus, anti-spam, and anti-malware. From an SLA perspective, we do provide industry-leading SLAs. So we've got a 98% anti-spam SLA, a 1 in a million false positive SLA, and a 100% anti-malware SLA. All of those are financially backed, so if we are in breach of them, or if a customer believes we're in breach of them, we will investigate that particular incident and then come back to you if we are in breach, we would come back to you with an actual financial rebate on that, which is hard cash, not service credits.
Wonderful. And another one from Lee, sorry if I read this incorrectly. Is there a way of handling historical file attachments for the file storage attachment, or only newly sent?
So the approach I would take to that, if I understand the question correctly, would be to actually take those attachments or take those historic emails out of the Exchange environment or out of the existing archiving platform, and then ingest those into Mimecast, have those removed from the mailbox prior to actually migrating. In my experience, moving data to the Microsoft data centers is not the quickest process. It is pretty straightforward when you follow the appropriate processes, but it does take a lot of time. And if you have the ability to minimize the amount of actual live mailbox data to migrate, this will greatly ease your own pain as the IT department, as well as that of the end users, in terms of getting the actual migration to the cloud completed.
Okay, lovely. And I have one around email signatures for Exchange 2010 and 2013 transport rules. Is there an equivalent in Office 365 or Mimecast?
So there are two sides to this. The email signatures on Exchange 2010-2013 transport rules can be applied to internal as well as external messages, but they are relatively limited. So there's not, you don't have too much flexibility in terms of what you can do with them. Mimecast operates slightly, or because internal messages wouldn't pass through Mimecast before they're delivered, we wouldn't have the ability to apply signatures to internal emails. But for any external messages, we have a very, very powerful email signature capability that includes the ability to do HTML as well as plain text signatures, apply different signatures based on source or destination, sender, user, domain, address, attribute, as well as then take that a step further if you want to put in any kind of marketing stuff, or if you want to put trackbacks to your website and that kind of stuff. We can actually record click-throughs on those contents and provide reports to it. So kind of like a very basic level of market intelligence around the content that's sent out, or the active content that's sent out in your signatures.
Wonderful. And just one from Keith. Are all Mimecast plugins for varied devices included as standard, i.e. PC, iPads, etc.? And is BlackBerry 10 supported?
Yes, so all the mobile services as well as client services are included as part of the core service on everything excluding the what we call the most basic service, which is secure email gateway, and that's kind of an SMTP hygiene only solution. So we do support all of the PC, iPad, BlackBerry. BlackBerry 10 support is not yet available. The development teams are working on those, and we expect those to be available relatively soon. But because of the architectural changes on BlackBerry 10, we've had to rebuild and revise the way those applications work totally. And that's currently going through the QA and beta process and revision of those.
Okay, great, thank you. And another one from David. Would the SLA be with 2 suppliers rather than 1, and therefore would we be in the middle?
So your SLA would still be with would definitely be with 2 suppliers. However, there would be 2 different applications of that SLA. So once you have Mimecast in front of Office 365, your anti-spam, antivirus SLA, false positive SLA, those kind of pieces would sit with Mimecast and no longer with Office 365. So you have a single point to take that to. Any service availability SLA on the actual email or Exchange connectivity piece or Exchange online connectivity piece would sit with Microsoft. However, in the event that you have an outage with Microsoft or with Office 365, Mimecast would be there to be able to allow you to continue transacting email.
Okay, perfect, thank you. And just one
so
from...
there are pretty clear boundaries between the 2.
Thank you. So one from Naresh now. How are the send-receive limits affected by the hybrid solution?
So the send-receive limits in a hybrid solution are quite a complex scenario. Hybrid basically gives you gives you some flexible options in terms of how you route email. So that means you can either receive, typically when you deploy hybrid, you would start receiving email, or you'd start by receiving email on your on-premise infrastructure and then passing that through or relaying that across to Office 365. But as you progress on the actual migration and the deployment and all that kind of stuff, or all those kind of areas, you would then start moving the primary entry point and exit point of email to Office 365, which would mean that eventually you'd end up in the exact same limitations or in the actual send-receive limitations of Office 365. You could potentially get away with some cheeky routing kind of configurations in that, where you continue to send outbound large files through Exchange on-premise, but that creates a whole bunch of other limitations and challenges in terms of managing routing, tracking, tracing, SPFs, reverse checks, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thank you. And just a couple from Tahir. So we use Enterprise Vault 2007. Would we need to extract emails from the archive to import, or can Mimecast handle these straight from the Vault in archive format?
So you would definitely need to export the data from Enterprise Vault. For obvious reasons, we can't really hook directly into third-party archive solutions. Mainly because even the primary reason for that would be that someone like Symantec are constantly developing and supporting and improving their products. If we developed an integration today, there's no guarantee that that will work tomorrow, and we would have no notification of any such integration. There are specialist partners and specialist solutions out there that can help you do this, or help you do the extraction, and then provide that data for us to ingest.
Perfect. And does Mimecast give us the ability to manage remote devices, for example, remote wipe of Apple devices?
No. So mobile device management is not one of our areas or one of our feature sets. What we do allow you to do is set policies for the Mimecast applications on those mobile devices. So you can do things like set the PIN policy for the PIN policy for the user when they sign into the application, launch the application, allowing us to encrypt the content. You can set the PIN timeouts, the action, so disable the account if the PIN is entered incorrectly 5 times, and those kind of elements. In a future release of the platform, we are looking at how we could provide the capability and possibility to administrators and organizations to be able to securely wipe the Mimecast data and the Mimecast applications on the device. But full mobile device management outside of the Mimecast application is not something we would be doing.
Wonderful, thank you. And just a question from John. Can the mailbox size limits be set lower than the 50 gigabyte per mailbox?
That's a very good question. I've not actually come across someone who has asked it. I believe it should be, logically speaking, and don't quote me on this, but I believe it should be possible using the Exchange Management Shell extension for Office 365. I don't sort of personally see the logical reasoning behind doing this, aside from if you really wanted to just reduce the OST file size and cache size and those kind of things for the end user.
And just one last question. How do we migrate our archived emails in PST files to Office 365?
The only way, or there are a couple of ways to do that. You would either use a third-party migration tool, of which there are sort of many out there, and they're all more or less, some are better than others at different elements of it. Or else you'd have to manually import that PST file. You'd have to connect Outlook to the actual Exchange mailbox, or Office 365 mailbox, and then import the PST file into Outlook and allow that to sync in the background to Office 365. So it's not the simplest and easiest process to do that.
And one last one from David. Would it be possible to get a link to the recording so I can share with our team members? Yes, that's no problem, David. We'll send that out straight after the webinar. Thank you. So there's a lot of interesting questions have come up, so we will get in touch with you individually just to explore them a bit further as well. But we hope we answered them as well as we could. So are there any more questions at all? Oh, thank you, David. Good webinar. So I think that's it. So thanks a lot, Johan. Oh, sorry, one more. One from Tahir. We have a terabyte of public folders. Can Office 365 handle these, or does it have to be shared mailboxes?
So with the latest release of Office 365, the 2013 edition, Microsoft have introduced or have reintroduced public folders. Previous editions did not support public folders. There are storage limits on those public folders, and unfortunately I don't have those stats and those numbers available at hand, mainly because over the last 5 years a lot of organizations have been trying to get away from public folders because of Microsoft's sort of drive to get rid of them, and then it was only with Exchange 2013 that they rescinded. What has happened, however, in Exchange 2013 is that the way public folders work and they're architected has changed, and it's no longer the traditional public folder database style approach. It is more of a shared mailbox or a mailbox style approach to public folders. So it is kind of a bit of both. My recommendation and my approach would be to analyze what are the public folders being used for. Do they necessarily have to be public folders? Could I move them to something that's more manageable, like a shared mailbox? How much data do they need? Do I need to purchase? So something that's quite important to note is that you don't typically pay for shared mailboxes or resource mailboxes in Office 365, but that has its limitations. So if you do need to have large shared mailboxes where you have a support shared mailbox or a support shared public folder or something like that that has the last 5 years worth of data in it, then you're potentially going to have to pay for an actual live user mailbox to be able to support that amount of data, or make a decision to just trim that right down to only the relevant portions of data that you want, and then find another place to store the older content and keep it accessible for reference purposes.
Wonderful, thank you. So that's the end of our webinar. Thanks again everyone for joining, and I hope you have a good rest of the day.
Thank you very much, everyone.